So why does Kotter's model fit for us? Well, we discussed last week that in our case study, we could relate it to the metaphors of organism, political system, and machine. And the Kotter's model seems to fit these aspects fairly closely, and this was recognized in the Cameron and Green 2012 analysis. Kotter's model has found popularity largely from its direct and usable format rather than scientific consensus on the results. However, Applebaum et al. In 2012 contextualized each of the 8 steps with regards to relevant studies and found that all of them were supported by empirical evidence, and secondly, that the steps were still relevant in 2012. Furthermore, Kotter's model and ideas have been applied in different higher education contexts and yielded valuable insights and results for higher education change projects. But we've also established some limitations in some ways that we want to adapt the model. Firstly, there's a fair amount of criticism in the literature about the fact that this model is supposed to be linear and therefore very rigid and on a step-by-step basis. It has therefore been put forward that the model would be better realized as a cyclical process, as suggested here by Cameron and Green, somewhat moving towards Pfeiffer et al.'s 2005 control loop of strategic change, whereby re-examination and redefining require implementation in Kotter's Step 7, as they state that a strategy for a change process is by no means finished on completion of its implementation. Pollack and Pollack in 2014 also state that different stakeholder groups move through the stages at different speeds. And this is also alongside the fact that the stages overlapped during the change management process. Moran and Brightman in 2000 say that measurement is the key to successful and sustainable change, and Sidorko in 2008 says that a criticism of the Kotter model is that there is little evidence of methodologies for evaluating or measuring the success of the change. Therefore, we would look to include some comprehensive measurements into our steps. These could take the form of short surveys or interviews with staff in order to learn about, for example, their felt need for change in Step 1, their knowledge about the vision in Step 3, or short-term improvements in Step 6. Based on the results of these quantitative or qualitative data gatherings, we can increase efforts or implement different approaches in case the intended outcome for the respective step has not been reached yet. We learned that Kotter's model has faced criticism for starting with a lot of energy but fading out towards the end of the change process. This is something we want to consider in our change management plan and pay attention to keeping the change active. Seeing the change as a cyclical process will help us tackle this. As stated in our last assignment, our case also fits well with the metaphor of seeing organization as a culture. This is an area where Kotter's model is lacking, and we want to bring more elements of the thought, people in the core of change, into our plan whilst using his steps as a base. Leadership skills and leadership culture will play a large role in implementing the change and keeping it alive. In his book Leading Change, Kotter mentions how creating vision can be difficult for managers as it's not a component of effective traditional management. This correlates with what we talked about in our Zoom meeting, how difficult it is for the new middle management to lead change with an example. Do they have the right tools and mindset to be in the leadership role in the change process? This is something we need to consider and tackle in our change management plan.